Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for clicking on this video. I do appreciate it. Today's video is something I think is very important in the gun community. It's actually the most important thing, and that is gun safety. And today I'm going to cover the three major gun safety rules for beginners. Now, if you're not a beginner, this video isn't necessarily for you. However, you can use this video to share with someone that you know is a beginner or wants to get into shooting, or their first time firearm owner, or if someone you are going to go take shooting with you, you want to make sure that they know these safety rules to keep yourself safe and also keep them safe. So if you're not a beginner and you know these rules, it may be easier to say, hey, send it to a buddy or a girlfriend, and while you're at work, you know, hey, we're gonna go shooting to the range later today, and so hey, why don't you check out this video and while I'm at work, and you could watch this, and then practice these steps, or make sure you know these rules, get these stuck in your head, and then we'll go shooting, and or maybe we'll go over it and make sure you learn what the rules were before we go shooting, stuff like that, however you want. Okay, so for the beginners out there, okay, there's three major rules. Some people have four, some people have five, but here's three to that I think are the most important. um, First, you need to understand that negligent discharges kill people every year. And I know it's up there in the hundreds, and it could possibly um, be in the thousands, maybe not of deaths, could be, but I know thousands of people get shot just in the US alone by negligent discharges. And if those people were following these rules, just three simple rules, those negligent discharges would not have happened. Also, before you click off, if you say this isn't for me, I'm going to make a part two and a part three. Safety rules for intermediate or even professionals, and then safety rules while you're at the range, what they will accept and will not accept at the gun range. Okay, so if you're a beginner and you are going to go to the gun range, watch this video, and then I will my next one will be for the gun range, so you know what to expect at the gun range, what to do, what not to do at the gun range. Um, okay, and also for my more seasoned veterans out there, you can share that video as well if you are planning on going to the range with someone, or if you know someone that is going to the range and you feel like maybe they're not in the best of hands because you know that they're not going alone, but who they're going with is not a someone who's got a lot of experience either. So send this video to them. Okay, so my three rules, I'm gonna just tell you what they are real quick, and then I'm gonna go back over them in a little bit of detail and explain why. And okay, the number one rule is to treat every single gun as if it is loaded, whether you know the status of it or not. What I mean by that is whether you know if it's loaded or not, because in my mind, you can never truly know if a gun is loaded. You can only think if it's loaded. Remember, people, um, unless you live alone, um, if there's any way anybody else has access to your guns, or maybe someone handled your firearm, you don't know if what status they left your firearm in. Number two is to keep your finger off the trigger always until you are ready to take your shot. And the number three rule is to never point your gun at anybody that you are not 100% absolutely certain you want to destroy. Okay? Now, number one, and all three of these rules kind of intermingle with each other, and we'll get into that and I'll explain how. Number one, treat every gun as if it's loaded. Every gun as if it's loaded. So I'm going to pick up this gun, okay? And steps or rules number two and three come into play right away. You're going to make sure your finger is not on that trigger, and you're going to make sure that you do not point this gun at anybody. Okay, so say this camera is a person. You're not going to I'm going to break the rules here on purpose. I know this gun is cleared because I cleared it before this video. So here's what you don't do, and then I'll show you what you do. So what you don't do is pick up a gun, finger on the trigger. You're not paying attention, your muzzle, you're flagging your best friend right now, and you're not paying attention too well. You're pulling the magazine out, and then you see how dangerous this is? When you rack a slide back with your hand, your muscles tighten up, and if you don't have great muscle memory, if you're a beginner, you're squeezing with this hand on the slide to pull it back. Well, you might accidentally squeeze with this hand too, and if that muzzle's pointed at someone, you're gonna shoot them if the gun's loaded, and you never know 100% if the gun is loaded. Okay, here's the correct way to do it. Pick up the gun, make sure your finger is off the trigger. Not only is it off the trigger, I don't want you to get into the habit of having your finger over the trigger guard. That's not enough. Keep your finger up here, riding the slide, basically. Okay. Next, you're gonna keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. You're gonna pull the slide out, or not the slide, I'm sorry, the magazine. I see it's an empty magazine, but that does not necessarily mean that we don't have to check inside the chamber. Okay, always check inside the chamber. You're gonna rack it twice, then you're gonna rack it one more time, locking the slide back. Now, when I'm locking the slide back, what I'm doing is I'm visually inspecting the chamber to make sure there's not a round, and the chamber is right here, the beginning of your barrel. Okay, that's where the round comes up out of your magazine and gets pushed into the barrel. That's your chamber, and your muzzle is the end of the barrel where the bullet expels from. So when you hear me say chamber and muzzle, so you never point your muzzle at anyone, and you're going to want to physically inspect your chamber. If it's you can always, a good way to do this to make sure there's no obstructions is to stick a small flashlight in there, and if you see light coming out the end of the muzzle, you don't have any obstructions. Okay, but you don't need to do that. You could just stick your pinky right at the chamber, and if you don't feel around in there, you're safe. Okay, and you're going to drop the slide back and put your magazine back in. Now, another wrong way to do this, let me grab my other magazine. I do have a loaded magazine. I'm going to follow all the steps. I'm not going to flag anybody with my muzzle, meaning I'm not going to point my muzzle at anyone. But I am going to drop the magazine. I'm going to keep my finger off the trigger. Rack it twice. Physically inspect the chamber. And then here's a big mistake where a lot of people make. They take their magazine, it's loaded. They think, okay, we're safe. And they pop the mag in. And a lot of semi-automatic handguns have that feature where if you throw the mag in hard enough, the slide automatically closes. And when that happens, you don't realize you just chambered around because you don't think you did, because the slide was all the way back. You pop the mag in and the slide comes forward. Okay, you're thinking, well, I didn't have the slide, all the way forward and then rack it back. You don't have to do that to chamber around. I just chambered around. See that? So if you clear your weapon, make sure you drop the slide first. Okay, drop your hammer as well. Put your gun on safe. And if you're gonna put a loaded magazine in, do it once the slide is dropped. Okay. I do not think it's a good idea to keep guns loaded unless you are ready to shoot, if you're at the range. Okay. Or if it's your home protection or your self-protection, your everyday carry. If you're just gonna put this gun back in your safe, there's no reason for it to be loaded. Now, when I say treat every gun as if it's loaded, I mean every gun. Even if you have a friend who's an ex-Navy SEAL and he hands you a weapon and he says it is clear, I don't care. You check for yourself. Finger off the trigger, take the mag out, rack it twice, and check the chamber, okay? Because I've had people hand me weapons before, and they say, "Hey, dude, what are you doing? It's clear. I want to hand you a loaded weapon," and sure as shit, there'd be a round in the chamber, or it was a loaded magazine, no round in the chamber, however you want it. But always know the status of the weapon. And to those of you that are gonna show a friend a gun, never hand them a loaded weapon. Make sure you know. Make sure you check as well before you hand it to them. The reason why, in case I didn't say why you are going to physically inspect the chamber, is because on pistols or semi-automatic weapons, you have what is called, this is for the beginners now, what is called a shell extractor. And the shell extractor is usually in the same spot on most guns. Mine is right here. I don't know if this light is too bright, but you can see it. It's like a pin. Runs from here to here, and it goes inside, and it has a little hook. Kind of looks like a fishing hook almost. And what that does is when the slide pulls back, it's pulling. It starts right up here with the chamber, and as you shoot, the round is expended. There's an empty shell here. This slide comes back, and it's pulling the shell out with it with this shell extractor. Now, if your shell extractor is obsolete, say it's broken or it's very dirty and you haven't cleaned it, it won't work. And what will happen is you'll get a shell or even a live round remaining in the chamber. So you can rack this 100 times. If your shell extractor is not working, that shell is going to remain there, and you're going to have a big problem if you just drop the mag, rack it a whole bunch of times, and then a lot of people, after they rack it and clear their weapon, they pull the trigger. Now, that causes a lot of negligent discharges because a lot of people don't keep their guns clean enough. That's one of the most neglected pieces of a firearm, parts on a firearm that I see, is the shell extractor. People don't spend enough time cleaning that, making sure it's in working order, making sure it's not cracked, whatever, maintaining it, okay? So that is exactly why you don't just rack it, and because you can't be 100% sure just racking it. You can't feel safe. You're not safe until you make sure. Number 2, finger off the trigger. Okay, finger off the trigger, and I mean off the trigger, off the trigger guard. This does not make me feel comfortable at all when I see people with their finger off the trigger, but they have it right over the trigger guard. Okay, you want to have it up here on the slide, basically riding the slide, or on the frame of the gun itself. Okay. The reason why, even when you know your gun is not loaded, you always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire, is because of muscle memory. And the same thing with not pointing your gun at anything you're absolutely 100% sure you want to destroy. It's muscle memory. Now, every time you pick up a gun to clear it, to make sure it's not loaded, you're going to pick it up. Your muscle memory automatically, you don't even have to think about these things. Your finger will always go here. Your finger will not touch that trigger, okay? It's the whole point of these exercises and of these practices. And you're going to drop your mag, and all this you're doing, you're making sure you're not flagging someone with the muzzle. You're clearing it. This is all muscle memory. If you get into bad habits of saying, I know the gun's not loaded, I just cleared it, and so I can have my finger on the trigger, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not going to work, because that creates bad habits and bad muscle memory, and you're going to make a mistake sooner or later. Imagine picking up a gun to clear it, and you pick it up like this, and you flag someone because you're very undisciplined with your firearms, and you're pulling it back, and this is your mother, your grandmother, your best friend, whoever. God forbid you have a negligent discharge. And this is how almost all negligent discharges happen. They all happen by not knowing that their gun is loaded. Secondly, they happen because people have bad habits. They have their fingers on the trigger. and they're flagging someone. They're pointing the muzzle at people they shouldn't. Okay, so finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire. What I mean by ready to fire is, I mean, when you're at the range, for instance, you got your target 20 feet, 25 feet, beginner, maybe you want to do 10, 15 feet. Okay, your gun's loaded, you got a mag in, you racked around, you still keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target. Now, even when your sights are on target, you do not put your finger on the trigger until you are ready to take that first shot, okay? Once you're ready to take your shot, calm your breathing down, calm your thinking, get everything out of your head. Nothing else matters but this moment. Nothing else exists but you, this firearm, which should be an extension of yourself, and that target. That's all that exists around you. Once you clear your mind of everything else, you can put your finger on the trigger and go to work. Do what you do, okay? Third is never point the gun at anything or anybody you are absolutely 100% sure you are going to destroy. And same reasons for the trigger is it creates good muscle memory, good habits, and this is what prevents us from having negligent discharges. If you do have a negligent discharge, if you at least have the habit of not pointing the gun in the wrong direction, if you have the habit of keeping the gun pointed in the safe direction at all times, no matter what you're doing, if you're clearing your weapon and it's pointed in a safe direction and you do have a negligent discharge, then you're not going to shoot anybody, hopefully. And what I mean by safe direction, now if you live in an apartment and you share a wall with a neighbor or something, you're not going to want to go like this and clear the weapon. Just because nobody is in your sight does not mean that this bullet is not going to hit somebody. Bullets travel through walls, they travel through sheetrock, drywall, they travel through wood, they travel through furniture, and they will go straight through your wall and hit your neighbor and kill him in a heartbeat, and your neighbor would not even know what hit him. Also, ricochets happen all the time. If you're standing on concrete and you're clearing your weapon, don't point the gun at the concrete, because if you have a discharge, bullets ricochet off concrete, okay? Bullets, I'm not sure. I would assume they ricochet off tile, but I know for a fact I've seen bullets ricochet off concrete and kill people. So these are the habits that you want to get into. They create good habits, good muscle memory, to where it's second nature to you. When you pick up a gun, you know you're doing things the right way. It's just like people, for the intermediate experienced folks, when they practice their drawing from their drawing techniques, drawing from the hip. There's a list of things that they do to create muscle memory. Say this is I'm getting a little bit beyond, but I'm just equating it to habits of intermediate shooter, which is something that they would do is concealed carry, have their firearm in their holster on their side, and what you'll see them do is take one hand to clear their shirt, the other hand to grab the weapon, come up. Once their weapon is clear of the shirt, they get their second hand on the weapon, and then it's they have their points of I forget what it's called right now. My mind is racing. I keep looking out my window. It's about to rain. My windows are down in my truck, but it's the same thing. So I don't want you to think just because you're a beginner that you have to learn these things. It's because you're a firearm owner or a firearm, someone that's going to handle a firearm, or you live with someone that has a firearm, okay? These things are very important. Even the professionals have to practice good, safe habits, okay? The moment we stop practicing good, safe habits, that's when bad things happen. So thank you for getting through this video. If you enjoyed it or learned anything, hit the thumbs up. If there's something someone else thinks I should have covered in this video, please comment it below. Remember, I am going to do another video for a more intermediate gun safety, and then I'm going to do a gun range do's and don'ts safety video as well. So I might knock them out today. So if you see me wearing the same uh, U.S. Army shirt, and Buccaneers salute the service hat, you know that I did this all in one day for you guys because I care that much about gun safety. Thank you. And share this with a loved one if you think that there's some knowledge in here that they should see.